We know that being an entrepreneur is no easy feat, and it takes a certain ecosystem to grow success. Lots of strategy, money, vision, and of course, a lot of luck. At the Global Startup Awards this year in Copenhagen, our next guest was recognized as Ecosystem Hero of the Year. She's from Stockholm, which per capita is reportedly has the highest number of tech unicorns in the world, with, of course, the exception of Silicon Valley. So now we're going to welcome Henna Keränen. Henna, thank you so much for being here, and congrats on the big award. What's the why behind your startup work? What is the reason that you're so invested in this?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's honestly a big honor that the entire Global Awards and to be here as well. But I'm super excited for the startup ecosystem. We know that these technologies, we know that the small startups, they have become mainstream companies, and they are changing the way we live. They are changing our societies. And you get this kind of like a sneak peek towards future constantly when you're working with startups. So it's very cool, and I'm very devoted to make the ecosystem even better and the Nordic region even better. So yes, it's a super cool job.
Yeah, I know your company Sting, since you were founded in 2002, has nurtured over 350 tech companies. And you're in Stockholm, which I guess is this tech hub, which I didn't realize really until we did this story together. Can you tell me a little bit about why you think Stockholm has become such a hub for this work?
Well, that's very true. I think Stockholm is the second, startup capital. If you think that after Silicon Valley, that actually there has a nickname. Stockholm has a nickname called like the Unicorn Factory as well. So It's very true that we actually deliver many successful startups. But I think there are some key factors. Obviously, the government has done a good job there. So we had this called PC package in the 90s that actually supported families to get computers. So a lot of people became interested in tech. But also the entire, people living here in Sweden, we are pretty tech savvy. We are used to use different digital services. We have hundreds of successful entrepreneurs that have become like role models as well. But also it's kind of like this global mentality, because Stockholm is still a tiny city and Sweden is a tiny market. So we have to be, global from the day one and look at what can we do to get the next market and to become even mainstream. So I think that's a good combination of those kind of like this Scandinavian humbleness. And at the same time, we have to think globally as well and be ready to expand.
Yeah. And when you think about who you want to work with, what is your rubric for deciding what startup is going to be a winning idea? What does that look like for you? How do you determine which ideas to back and which ones you think will be successful?
Oh, that's a $1 million question, I think. But it's for sure. It's hard to predict. But team obviously plays a crucial role. So team is something that we look very carefully. We want to see more diversity. We want to see in general, we want to see gender diversity. We want to see like different cultures, education backgrounds, and so forth. So we actually know that the studies show us that more diverse teams, so the better performance they actually get. So that is very, very important factor. Obviously, there has to be a need in the market. So the market has to be mature enough to start using these kind of like services or tools. We know for a fact that, for instance, climate change is unfortunately still here, and we need solutions. We need desperately both towards energy storages. We need consumers need more services and so forth. So there have to be a good combination of a stellar team, a need in the market, and a certain innovation level as well.
Yeah, and how do you decide when a startup, like how do you suss out, okay, this startup is not only going to address an issue as big as climate change, but it's also going to be an economic success? Because I feel like if you heard that it was going to do a lot of good for the world, it might be hard to then say, oh, well, actually, it's not going to make a lot of money, so we need to move on,
Yeah, it has to actually work. So there has to be, that there has to be some kind, bigger in it that people actually start using this service. For instance, that there has to be the people, let's say that it's an app that actually attracts us to use that every day. So there has to be something in it. And it's super hard to sense that will the company have it or not. But I think it's important that you go get out of the building, as we say at Sting. You start to test your idea like early on with your potential customers. So you get actually the feedback from them that is this a good fit or not. And in that sense, you gain a lot of like important knowledge that what should we do better, and what would you, or is this going to fly or not? So it's important actually to go and sell pretty early on.
What's something about the startup world that you think people would be surprised to learn in terms of the challenges for ideators? I'm curious if you have any, dirty secrets to share with us about the challenges people face.
Surprisingly enough, well, though we have a lot of capital in the markets, it's still a struggle for the startups to actually get the investment and to attract investors. But it's also super hard to attract talents. Startups and the entire entrepreneurship is something that it's bustling. It's something that it's people want to become entrepreneurs and they want to join a startup. But at the same time, we know for a fact that startups, they don't offer security. They cannot offer high salaries. So they have to be attractive in order to get the best talents.
Sure.
And there, I think it's very important for them actually to show purpose. We know that purpose-driven companies actually attract more people. So I would actually be, I would be very aware of the purpose of the company and actually highlight that even more.
Yeah, sure. What do you think is the single biggest hurdle that women in particular face in entrepreneurship and the startup world? And how could we kind of mitigate that for female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's still, unfortunately, we don't see that many female entrepreneurs. At Sting, we have a goal that we would like to see that half of the companies that are joining our programs would be female founded. And of course, the more tech companies and the more tech savvy we become, the less we tend to see women. So it's very important that we actually bring technology to everyday life and attract actually female and young women and young girls to become more interested in this. And for instance, we have had an interesting company called Imagilabs that actually they have this app that they want to attract young girls to start becoming more interested in coding with the accessory that they provide at the same time. So it's a cool combination that you are bringing the coding to a young girl's everyday life that you can connect with your fellows as well. So those kind of solutions and the collaboration that we do with schools, that we start educating people early on and how important technology is, I think that's very, very important.
Right. It feels like men are given the space to make mistakes and get back up again. And for women, that first try, the stakes are so high.
Yeah, it might be. And, then there is, studies that show that, for instance, when women apply for a job, we want to be able to, track all the things that the company is looking for. And we want all the boxes checked. So we are a bit more kind of security driven and a bit more that we should get, more balls to say and be there and take those important tables and just, dare.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Henna, really appreciate you joining us and talking to us about the startup space and especially how women can break in. I really appreciate that those words of wisdom.